All right, welcome to another episode of Fixing Your Kanban. Todd, that's kind of tough to say. It's like fixing your Scrum, fixing your Kanban. But no, fixing your Kanban. And how do I know it's fixing your Kanban? Because we have Dan Vacanti standing right over there. Dan, how are you doing, sir? He's
right
like,
there.
right there. Yeah. Comments go below, right? Leave your comments below, but Dan's over there.
Yeah.
Comments on how Ryan spelled official in the last episode.
Hey, you promised not to tell. All right. So the second episode of Fixing Your Kanban. Dan, there's a question that Todd and I have chatted about this a little bit. We've read a lot of the literature, but I'm not sure we know the actual story. How did Kanban get here in North America? Like, what's the origin of it? Because I don't think anyone actually knows the behind the scenes. I mean, with Scrum, it's easy. There was the new product development game paper in Harvard Business Review back in 1986. And then Ken and Jeff saw that and they presented at OOPSLA, and the rest is history, right? But with Kanban, it's a little more, it's a more mysterious than that. Like, what is the actual...
The last episode, you said 13 years. And to be honest with you, that piqued my interest as well. Yeah. Right? Is that?
Yeah. And I was doing the math. It's more like 14 years. It's closer to 14, maybe even, 14-ish years. And so just to be clear, we're talking about knowledge as applied, Kanban as applied to knowledge work, right? We're not talking about Kanban manufacturing. Everybody probably knows that story. That's been around for decades, if not honestly more like centuries.
Right.
I think that's a really good differentiation. Kanban as it applies to knowledge work.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So the practice. I'll just start off with a shameless plug. There's a talk that I've done that goes into much more detail. I know we only have a few minutes here, but there's a talk that I've done that goes into so much more detail about this. It's called The Secret History of Kanban and Why It Matters. So if you just Google that, I don't know, Ryan, if we can put up a banner about that, the Secret History of Kanban and Why It Matters is the talk I've done. That was based on an earlier talk that was given by a gentleman by the name of Darren Davis. Now, most of you have probably never even heard the name Darren Davis, but Darren was the one who actually led the very first Kanban team, what came to be known as Kanban. When he was doing it, they didn't call it Kanban at the time, but he did a blog post and a presentation, and then I took it and did my take on it. So that's maybe where we start. It's a company called Corbis in Seattle, Corbis, and there was a team there doing sustainment work, maintenance and break fixes and things like that. And the process they were using wasn't working, so they went and investigated other methodologies, other approaches. Those didn't work. They got a process dictated to them by someone, which if you want to watch the video, you can find out all that detail. That didn't work. So they just essentially had to go invent all this stuff on their own. For the most part, they invented it on them, collaboratively. We got together and as a team decided what they wanted to do. And then I came in shortly after that, and we took everything that they were doing in the sustainment area and scaled it to the rest of the engineering organization. And so all of their product development and project development was using Kanban. So how about I leave it there and maybe both of you ask me questions about that to go into a little bit more detail.
What I'm interested in is, so Corbis is where it started. Where did it go from there, right? Because obviously it went outside of Corbis. How did that happen? Were you the one? Were there other people who was involved in kind of taking that and bringing it into other organizations?
Yeah, there were these pockets of interest that were popping up kind of all over the place. It was kind of organic growth, I would think, if you will, that a lot of people had been. Because if we can say, I don't know if we can say this, because that was in the fairly early days of the exponential growth of Scrum adoption. If we talk, back mid 2000s or whatever, and Scrum. I know you guys know this better than I do. I would say maybe Scrum wasn't as mature back then, obviously, as it is now. And so a lot of people doing a lot of bad Scrum back then, as a lot of people are still doing bad Scrum right now. But we're looking for something else. And this was kind of that alternative. And so it was an international community just kind of quickly grew out of this Kanban thing, because there were a bunch of people, looking for something different. So we had, people like, Carl Scotland in the UK, and Yuval Yaret in Israel, and just, Klaus Leopold in Germany. I mean, it was just kind of like, I was going to compare it to COVID, but maybe I shouldn't or whatever. But yeah, it just kind of grew from there.
I mean, it's interesting to hear that how emergent this was. So it's not like this codified set of thou shalt do practices. I mean, if you read Klaus Leopold's book on Kanban, it looks a little bit different than what Dan will say about Kanban. And it looks a little bit different than what Yuval will say about Kanban. But at the core, and what I like about this, and I was kind of running this across the bottom, at the core is really that Kanban guide, right? At the core are these practices that others have then used emergence and empiricism and whatever other observational sciences to then add or remove practices as needed. Based on their complex kind of situation, right? And so, I mean, it's really neat to see, and it's neat to hear that it was really, in the beginning, it was all about the emergence of practices as well. It wasn't someone sitting in a room saying, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it's going to be all this academic type of activity. It was really through work being done, through observation, and then trying to amplify the learnings of that. And that's a really cool origin story there, Dan.
Absolutely, and that, I mean, it should be pointed out that at the beginning it was somebody in the room saying you are going to do this and you are going to do that, and as you'll see in the video, that didn't work. That simply didn't work. So, somebody directing that traffic, it just didn't work. Now, I guess in some ways it worked in that it quickly taught the team what not to do. So I mean, maybe some credit should be given there. But yeah, that having somebody from outside saying you are going to do this, just for the most part, didn't work. And to the point about, yes, maybe Klaus talks about it differently, and Yuval talks about it differently, and I talk about it differently, and everybody really kind of talks about it. Some things we always agree on, I mean, like in general, it's better to visualize your work than to not visualize your work. Yeah. In general, it's better to control your work in progress than to not control your work in progress, right? I mean, there's just these kind of more universal truths,
And what I think is fascinating about what's been set up at prokanban.org is that Kanban guide is kind of the unifying glue between the different viewpoints. I don't think there's any disagreement between the major practitioners on the planet around the core things expressed in that guide, which is why it's it is the starting point if you really want to begin bringing Kanban practices into your organization.
Yeah. I think it's awesome to have that unifying thing too, because with Scrum, we have that in the Scrum guide, right? And there's all kinds of different practices and things that you can add. We were talking about this a little bit in the last video, right? The same is to be said with Kanban, right? The Kanban guide, though, is really, as you said, Dan, the essence of what you need for Kanban. Now, given the context of your situation, you can add things to amplify that. Right, but it's really the basic getting started kit that what you need to succeed. You add what you need. You add what you need to amplify it. Right, which is awesome.
Yep. So I mean, this video should just serve as an invitation to everyone out there. If maybe you thought you knew what Kanban was, or maybe you tried it before and didn't like it or whatever, maybe this is your opportunity to revisit and kind of see, as both Ryan and Todd talk about, where Kanban has come from, where it is now, and how you might be more successful at fixing your Kanban.
Yeah, there you go.
Especially with Ryan having spelled official right this time.
All right, and with that, we're going to head over to the end screen and take Todd out of the picture. So Agile for Humans is a proud partner of prokanban.org, and we, of course, partner with Dan Vacanti quite a bit on courses and content creation and other things. And so we are super proud to be able to have these discussions and work with them on bringing the Kanban ideas forward. Let us know in the comments what you think. What did you think the origin of Kanban was? What do you think about the ideas of how Kanban emerged after these academic type activities didn't work? Leave us a comment. Let us know your thoughts on Kanban in general. Is it working? Is it not for you and your organization? What are your questions? Because we're going to start taking those questions and working through those. I've also put some videos below. Those will help. We're going to reference the videos that Dan talked about on this screen as well. So check those out. And until next time, keep on flowing I don't know. What's a good ender, Todd?
I don't know. Let's go with that. Keep flowing.
There you go.
Let
Flow
it flow. And put that to that theme song. Let It Snow by. I forget what it is. Probably time to cut it. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a great night or have a great day.